Welcome back to another episode of the Strength and Speed Podcast. I am your host, Mudgear Hannibal Race Pro and Strength and Speed owner, Evan Preparis. I got a guest with me on the line, Mike Stefano from Obstacle Running Adventures. Mike, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here again.
Yeah, it's great having you. I wanted to bring you on because I recently moved to the East Coast. Actually, I'm still kind of in transit, but I wanted to bring you on to pick your brain. Before we get to that, though, a quick word from this episode's sponsor. This episode is brought to you by The Feed. If you haven't checked out The Feed, check it out. I'm going to drop a link in the show notes down below. It's basically like a supplement superstore. It has literally all the supplements from like all the different endurance brands. Like, Mike, what's your favorite endurance like supplement brand? You have any preferences?
I use goo a lot sometimes. Yeah.
Yep, Goo is on The Feed. So if you like Goo gels but prefer Hammer Nutrition, Perpetuum plus a different brand's melatonin, you can shop that all on The Feed, and you don't have to do multiple orders from different websites.
Awesome.
So check that out. Mike, what's been going on Obstacle Running Adventures real quick, and then let's start talking East Coast stuff.
Yeah, a lot. So it's getting to be that busy time of the year where we're going out covering events in person. I was just at Viking for the first time in 5 years. Just covered Savage last weekend and planning to do the Boston Super and then the Teddy Bear Crawl and then the Boston Sprint all next weekend too. So we got lots going on.
Nice, nice. And where can people find your podcast?
Yeah, wherever people listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I use Overcast, as Castro, lots of places, or in the OCRreport.com if people still want to use websites like that too.
Nice, nice. So I recently, like I mentioned earlier, I moved. I officially don't live in the Midwest anymore. I moved out of Kansas. I have not moved into my new place in Boston. So I'm currently like just homeless, but not not in a bad way. And I'm actually in Boston, staying at a friend's place. So I should move into my new place in about a week and a half.
That's
Um,
exciting.
yeah. Well, I wanted to, like I said, I wanted to bring you on to talk about New England, like OCR, because I know there's been a whole bunch of brands that have kind of like risen and fallen. And recently I've seen several brands kind of announce their last race.
Yep.
So kind of what's going on in the Northeast? And then we'll kind of just take the conversation, let it flow from there.
Yeah, so it's been a wild ride. Wild ride. The Northeast used to be the biggest place for obstacle course racing. Spartan, of course, being centered in Killington was very huge, but also the local scene was absolutely massive. I worked for a few companies. I raced so many brands, and like all over the North America, there's been a big shrinkage of the brands that are still around. So the Viking that I just covered a couple weeks ago, they had their last event, which is a wicked bummer. His event was put on, or the obstacles were by Rob Butler, who was known for Shale Hill, which went under like 6 years ago. So there's a lot going on, but we still have a lot left.
Yeah, I was upset with Viking. I was looking forward because they had like an Ultra Cup that
Yes.
they were doing, and I've only got to run the Viking course once in 2016 during OCR America, so I wasn't racing per
Mhm.
se. I was just kind of slogging through it very slowly multiple times, and yeah, I was looking forward to doing that one. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, the cool thing about the Viking Cup too was Asa Coddington, so that the head of Viking reached out to Goliathon, Noob Sanity, Spartan, Tough Mudder, which I know Spartan and Tough Mudder are the same now, and a bunch of other companies to make it all work too. So it was the furthest distance cumulatively across all the races, and they won a cup, and they had age group cups, and the trophies were pretty awesome too, and it had their mileage written on it, which was awesome.
That is super cool. I think Kevin LaPlatney, the Mudman from Long Island, won a. I think he won
Yes,
his
he
age
did.
group for that one.
Yep. Yeah, he did. He worked his butt off.
Nice, nice. Okay, so Viking is now behind us, unfortunately. Even though, like you mentioned, Rob Butler made some of the obstacles. Some of them were really cool, really unique that I hadn't seen anywhere else. Uh, what else? What's
So
got its last event coming up, or what had its last event recently?
yeah, another one to pivot to is Boulder Dash, which is in Exeter, Rhode Island. So they just announced that their final event will be in September. Now this is a wicked bummer because their events have been going since 2011, which I don't know about you, Evan, that beats me in the sport.
That does beat me. Yeah, that beats me. 2013 would be my first.
Yeah. And I know you recently had Lynn Hall on the show, so she's the one that's been putting on this event. Back in the day, she used to rent out actual beaches, and there'd be a huge, huge course on the beach, just really, really fun stuff. You'd carry like a super heavy, like a buoy full of water, and you'd have to go up and over walls with that. And she incorporated the beach theme with the event, and then she had like super muddy races, and she had a race that went through this old amusement park before they tore it down. And then a few years ago, she pivoted more to a permanent course, which I had always thought was the future of OCR because you don't have to move everything. Permanent courses just seem to be more financially viable. But she announced that she's going to be done too because she's tired. It takes a lot of effort to put on all these events, and just the numbers haven't been where they are. But highly, highly recommend people go and check out their last event in September.
Yeah, yeah, that's rough, especially if you're used to making, whatever I'm just throwing a number out there. Let's say you're used to making 10K per event and you
Right.
start making like 1K per event, and you're like, well, why am I working for, you know, a tenth of my paycheck that it used to be? So,
Yeah.
even if you're still profitable, that still becomes less of an incentive.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. We call it response effort in my job too. And it's just if it doesn't really make sense, I get why she's discontinuing it. But it is a bummer too, because she was known for her all abilities team where Caitlin and I and a bunch of other people would help out with, people with cerebral palsy or people with autism or just anything that people were affected with. And we were getting them through the course,
that's
taking
super
them out of the
cool.
wheelchair, putting over the wall. It was amazing. And to
That's
this
super cool.
think I've
Yeah.
done many events that have been as inclusive. There's one more on this list that I'm excited to get to, but that's a big one to lose in the New England community.
Yeah, I'm gonna as of now that's on my schedule. It's just a matter I just got to make sure I don't have any like new commitments that weekend. So I'll probably sign up last minute is my plan.
Fair. For this next one, I wanted to move to southern New Hampshire. I can't think of where it is exactly, but it's something called the Wasson Pond Wrangler. And up
Mm.
until 2 years ago, it was called the Wasson Pond Pounder. So it recently changed over hands. This is also kind of like a fundraiser. I've only done it once, but it's a really good entry-level OCR. And one time I went to it, it had a decent turnout too. A lot of fun little obstacles in and out of like little lakes and everything, but kind of made me think of like old school OCR.
Oh, nice, nice.
Also in southern New Hampshire is the Natticook Challenge, which I haven't run yet, but it's put on by James Golisano. I'm not sure if you know him.
Name sounds familiar. I bet you I'd know him if.
He's very prominent in the Tough Mudder community. He's always wearing like a cowboy hat. Very very
Oh
extroverted.
yeah, yeah. I don't think I. Yeah, I know him. I know him. Sorry, I just looked. I just Facebook searched him. Like I know that.
Yes.
It's funny.
Yes.
Sometimes I don't recognize people's full names, even though like I recognize their faces.
Right. Right. Yeah. So he's the one that puts on this event. And he's been really big in the OCR and ninja community for a while too. He had his own ninja gym for a bit before the building was sold out from underneath him. And now I think the YMCA bought all the obstacles that he had, and so now he's working with them there too. But this event, the Natticook Challenge, he puts it on as part of its like Parks and rec program, and it seems like it's really good. It's big into getting more of the youth out into the sport, which I think we really need for the future of OCR. So that's something that's on my list. Hoping to make it to this year. I don't remember what the date is for that one though.
Okay, and now is that one? No words of that one doing its last event, correct? That one's
No,
still
no. To my
good.
knowledge, it's still doing okay. I think he has sounds a bummer to say, but like when you start off recently, he's kind of like the new kid on the block in terms of putting on the events. I don't think he's expecting too many numbers, but I think what
Right.
he's getting is enough for now.
Yeah. And then like we already talked about, you don't have that frame of reference of like, oh, I used to make X amount and now I'm making, one third of X or whatever it may be.
Exactly. And while I haven't run it, I have had some other friends that ran it and said that it was a good time. He had some unique obstacles going through the water and everything.
Nice.
Um,
What about the, Northeastern favorite one? I know the answer already, but I'm gonna ask anyway. Fit challenge.
Yep. Yeah, I have that towards the graveyard section at the bottom. I was gonna save that towards the end, but I could definitely talk about Fit Challenge now. They were in Cumberland, Rhode Island, run by Rob McCoy, who grew to be a pretty good friend of ours. He won many, many, many awards for best small OCR race director, best small OCR, like a whole bunch of awards. and the fact that he had his last event, I believe it was last year, definitely hit New England the hardest. There's still a lot of races that we have left, but his was definitely the biggest and the most well known for, I'd say, the rest of the country, if not the rest of the world. He had some awesome awards, very big into using like multi-lap and incentivizing that process. And selfishly, it was the closest one to home too. It was only like a half hour away, which is pretty hard to beat.
Oh, yeah. I can't remember what I had conflicting that weekend, but there was another event that overlapped, and I had to make a choice.
It was your buddy's new event. I can't think of the name of it.
Mythic?
Yes, it was Mythic Race.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so fair. Um, but I did want to head back to New York real quick. I know it's not New England, but there's still good stuff in New York. Noob Sanity. So in Binghamton, New York, the elite team has gotten a lot of attention from like Savage and OCRWC, but their events are just mostly them, and I think they really deserve more people from the outside. They have their Mud Gauntlet course, which is a permanent obstacle course. It's very fun obstacles. I know you've been there as part of OCR America, I believe one and two, right?
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're ones that like if you haven't made the trip out to Binghamton, New York to check out Noob Sanity, that's something that you absolutely need to do. It's any day of the week too. If it's not a race day or whatever, you still have people out there training and they're phenomenal. I would say it is the best permanent course in the country.
Yeah, I love them. I love them. I love not only the course, I love the owner, Jarrett Newby, and then anyone who's listened to this podcast for a while has heard me praise them, right? To me,
Yeah.
it's the best community. It's the best team. Like, and I have a team, right? I have a pro team that I manage, and I have the strength and speed guys, and we're kind of spread out. But like a single location team, that is by far the best because they have the elites, like you said, they tear it up at Savage. They a lot of times will show up to toughest and throw down there and get some podium spots out of that and world's toughest. And then they also have just like people who are like, yeah, I'm gonna drink some Fireball and do a couple laps today.
Yeah.
And
And
then
more
people who are
recently
like,
too,
I'm new to OCR. What's happening? I don't know what's happening right now. So
yeah, more recently too, they've adopted the last man standing format for OCR, which is a dangerous game, but it sounds like that's been going pretty well too.
that is a dangerous game.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to make it out to some of their events now that I live much closer.
Definitely. Another event that I believe is an hour south in Wallkill, New York, is Obstacle Wonderland, which is put on by Gabe Capobianchi and his girlfriend Trisha, and he's helped with this guy Peter. I can't think of his name. That's okay because he keeps calling me Kevin. But this is an event that's in this guy's backyard, and I went out for my first time in April for an event that he had called Boogie Wonderland. I think it was a 6 hour event. Looking back at the medal, yeah, I did the 6 hour multi-lap and they just blared like a whole bunch of like disco music the whole time, and it was really fun. It He goes nuts with his themes. So I know his next event is in October, and it's called Hallow Weird. And I saw the pictures from it last year, and it looks absolutely ridiculous. People doing an obstacle course in costume. That's
That's
something that we
amazing.
haven't seen for a long time in OCR.
I love that. That's amazing. Yeah, I have that one. That one's penciled into my schedule. I may have a conflict. I can't remember what I might have that weekend, but that's a strong maybe for me. And hoping something I can get to in the future. If not,
Yeah. The next one that I thought of is way up in Maine, up by Sunday River. I don't know if you're too familiar with that, but it's a big skiing spot.
I'm not. No.
Okay, so it's in Newry, Maine. And again, it's called Tough Mountain Challenge. I covered the event a few years ago and it was extremely well attended. When I went up there, I was shocked by how many people they had at this event. And they used like snow machines to shoot mist. They had this weird like waterfall obstacle that uses the mountain a decent amount, but it's only like 3 to 4 miles, so it's still relatively short. It's not going to kill you with the mountain. But that was an event that Caitlin and I had a lot of fun with, where we kind of had low expectations, drove up there, and were really blown away with the experience.
Nice. I know we're on a different podcast. We're going to talk about some of the Midwest ones, and I have a couple like that where you're just totally not you're just not expecting. You're like, oh, this is a small brand. I've never heard of it before, but and you show up there and you just have like some of the best times. So
Yeah,
that's cool.
that's a great feeling. Covering New York, New Jersey, and I believe Connecticut, although I think they had to roll back that location this year, is City Challenge. So this is put on by Elvi Guzman, and I still haven't had the chance to run one on one of his events. I've had him on the show a couple times, but a lot of people are very familiar with his obstacle of jumping over the police car in the cab. So he has, I want to say, 3 or 4 events that he puts on a year, covering New York and New Jersey, and that's an event that I really want to hopefully check out next year.
Yeah, they're a good brand. I got to do their race once in I think it was New York, and it was the ending was double sandbags up like stadium steps, and it was honestly
Oh.
it was pretty awful. like, I did not look good finishing that obstacle. And fun fact about those cars is they actually drive them to the event, right? So they're like street quote unquote street legal. They
Right.
drive them to the event, park them because when they went up to NORAM, that's how they got them up there. They drove those 2 cars up there,
That's so funny to think about.
and they also they were supposed to do an event in Kansas City this year. They ended up canceling it a couple months out.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
I'm guessing lack of numbers. I just saw almost no advertising, and I don't know if that was like I don't know what the deal was with that, but I saw essentially almost no advertising, and then the Midwest OCR scene, just like the Northeast, is lower than it used to be. So
Yeah. Bring the mood back up a little bit though. Another event that I referenced a little bit earlier is the Gaylord Gauntlet, which I first saw that and I'm like, oh, that's a funny name. But this event's in Wallingford, Connecticut, and it's done to raise funds for athletes with disabilities. So this one really felt like the early days of OCR. It's sold out at 1,000, which is kind of funny to think of. Like I think they could have sold a lot more tickets, but I believe they fundraised close to $900,000 for money for all of these people that are trying to get back into sport that have lost limbs. When I covered it, I talked to a man who was a civilian in Afghanistan who lost his legs from a mine. He came over to the United States, got treated with medical care, and now he does like a whole bunch of like 5Ks and everything. Um, Obviously without his legs, and he loves taking on this obstacle course race. They have people that are blind that are led by guide runners that are taking on the obstacle course. And I think it was definitely the my favorite event of the year so far.
interesting. That's also
Yeah,
an interesting, from a marketing business perspective, limiting the numbers is an interesting
right.
concept.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I mean, I get not wanting bottlenecks on the course, but if I'm sharing the course with blind athletes, athletes in wheelchair and stuff like that, I don't care about bottlenecks on the course. Like I'm totally fine with that. The elites can run first and all that, but I'm out there for a good time. I want to cheer people. I want to help more people out. But it was a beautiful facility, and it's done at the hospital. I guess I should have said that too, the Gaylord Hospital. So it's the first OCR I've done at that kind of venue, which was really neat.
Yeah, from a business perspective though, if you limit the supply, the demand might increase, right? So like just like Starbucks does with their like seasonal drinks, if you know
Mhm.
there's only 1,000 spots, maybe people sign up the day after the event opens, as opposed to waiting until 2 weeks out, whatever it may be.
Yeah,
And then
whatever the secret is,
you
I
have to
hope
worry
more.
about extra T-shirts, extra medals. You know your number. That's a hard line. I know Hannibal Race. One of the ones I did in Kuwait, he's like, yeah, we closed the registration after 1,000. I was like, oh, really? He's like,
Interesting.
yeah, it's just they wanted a certain level of experience. They didn't want all any sort of extra swag and possibly lose money that way. So makes for an interesting business model.
Yeah, I didn't really think about the logistics of it there either. But their event's been going on longer than I expected. They had like a whole bunch of food trucks. They had a good like venue experience, and they had uh like prize categories for the visually impaired runners, for the wheelchair athletes, for athletes just missing one leg. And then they also every year they have an athlete that they want to highlight, and they add a flag for it. And so they have a flag for every year they've ever had it. And it's just really cool to see the variety of, I guess, impairments that they've kind of highlighted every year. And I'm 100% going back next year. I'm very excited for that one.
Nice, nice.
Next up, this one's in Mullica Hills, New Jersey. So it's kind of far south in it, but it's Goliathon. And
Ah,
now,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, so this is ninja obstacles, straight up ninja obstacles with 3 different scales. and you have one attempt at the obstacle. If you take on the easy one, you get 1 point. The medium one is 2 points, and the hard one's worth 3 points. And it's just very unique. You see a lot of American Ninja Warrior people there. I met Jamie Ron there for the first time. Super down to earth guy.
Yeah, I
He's
love Jamie.
yeah, known as like Captain NBC and all that. And he was doing like the start lane speech and everything. And I didn't really watch American Ninja Warrior, so I didn't recognize him. So when I interviewed him, I just realized like, oh, this dude is super humble. He wouldn't have even told me all the amazing things he did unless I asked. But that's an event that's very, very cool, and people should check out if they want a really good obstacle challenge. And your point system again is more based on the obstacles that you complete. If you're able to get 3 points on each obstacle, you're called a David, and they list those athletes on the website. And I think one or two people are able to do it a year, and it's a huge honor to be able to do that because again, you have one attempt, and you get this like big like rope around your neck for the picture and everything, and that's a very cool one.
Yeah, Jamie is side note. Um, Jamie's been working on his running because I went to Hazelwood this year and I
He
was
was
like, oh, I beat Jamie by so much. Like I'm not worried. So and it was time trial format, so I didn't know where he was, and he
mm,
actually beat me on Hazelwood, which is like very obstacle dense. So
huh,
he was working. I don't know if he's still working on his running like he was over the holiday break, but he had picked up his pace for short distance stuff. So
that's awesome. Good for him. Yeah. This one I can't really think of the name of it right now, but I know it's at Cairn University. And this one came to my mind after Goliathon because they kind of stole their point system, which I thought was really cool, or borrowed it. So this is a college campus, I believe, in New Jersey or like right on the border of like Pennsylvania. And I had the race director on the show. This is a as it sounds, it's an event on a college campus, which I think is really good for again getting younger people into the sport. Hopefully, letting potential athletes know when you graduate, you can still do sport in other ways, and that things like OCR exists. And it looks like they're looking to expand their course a little bit. I suggested multi-lap, which I think would be really cool, really make the drive down worth it. But yeah, it's something at Cairn University, which was really cool.
hmm, we'll keep an eye out.
And then one more that I haven't done before, but I've also heard really good things about it. It's called Your First Mud Run. So again, as it sounds really good for newbies, but this is in Wildwood, New Jersey, which is a beautiful place. It's where Caitlin's family vacations every year. I've joined them a few times before, and it's done between piers. Think like old-fashioned 50s doo-wop style. Uh, Piers with like roller coasters and rides and this and that. And the course is done like in between two of those piers, which sounds really, really unique.
I don't want to brag, but I went to Wildwood, New Jersey for my after senior prom
Oh,
in high
cool.
school.
Oh, that's awesome.
And if you watched I think one of the seasons of Jersey Shore takes place at they work like on the boardwalk there at Wildwood. This is like I think it was like season 2 or something. Not that I watched Jersey Shore regularly, but when it
Right.
first when it first came out, we used to watch it because it was like the people I grew up with. That like that crowd, that Italian crowd
Yeah,
was my hometown.
I have heard that. I haven't watched the show, but I know Caitlin's a big fan.
I think JWoww was actually from the place where my high school was. But I want to say she went to a private girls' school. So
Is it like
I've
Staten
never
Island?
met her.
Is that like mainly where they're based out of?
Say again.
Staten Island, is that it?
Oh, I mean, yeah. So Staten Island, Long Island, New York, etc.
Right.
But yeah, Staten Island's is fairly known for having a strong Guido population. And
Fair,
same with
fair.
Long Island. Yeah.
Now I wanted to go over to, I know we just lost some earlier this year, which I still can't believe, but an event that you and your wife are very familiar with, Rugged Maniac.
Oh yeah.
I just wanted to give a little bit of a history about New England theirs, because their biggest event was in Southwick, Massachusetts. And they would have 2-day events, massive turnouts. For their New Jersey event, they had it in Englishtown, which, as you know, is where the birthplace of World's Toughest Mudder a long, long time ago. And just I can't emphasize how big of a impact to the sport it's done not having them there anymore. I don't understand how they didn't have one more event and say, hey, this is our last round. and have like thousands of people flock to it because I would have
Es-
canceled anything to be there one more.
Especially the New England event, right? Like that's where they were born. I think the part of the problem is you know, I don't think the original owners, my understanding, were not part of the company, or at least they weren't in a position of power at that point.
Yeah,
Um, right? Because they went on Shark Tank, so they had a bunch of backing there, and then they were part of like a larger race brand company. So I think they were like almost a subsidiary. So I don't know if the original owners had any stake in the game anymore. And when you don't have any sort of like love for it, it's a lot easier to get rid of it. But still, I agree. Like, why would you not do one last event and you don't even have to advertise for something like that. That was where they were born, right? You don't have to
yeah,
advertise. Just like Conquer the Gauntlet when they do their home base, their Tulsa event, they do significantly less advertising than they were doing for someplace like Iowa, and their
right.
numbers would be huge.
Yeah, I just from the very first time I did it, I loved it, and Caitlin really liked it early on too because she noticed it was really inclusive. Like they had like the inflatable like super jacked guy, but they also had like a really jacked woman too, which was nice. They had like women on the medals, this and that, and their festival experience was like the best by far. I miss it so much.
Yeah.
And then another entry level OCR, which we don't have anymore, and I'm disappointed, but less disappointed by Warrior Dash. Used to be in Thompson, Connecticut. No longer around, but not as big of a hit as Rugged Maniac. Their quality definitely diminished.
Yeah, yeah. It was just, losing that entry level. I feel like almost everyone I talk to, we go back 10 years, 5 or 6 years, and people are like, oh, what was your first OCR? And everyone's like, Warrior Dash. I feel like
Yep.
that was the standard reply.
Next up is my first race that I ever did. This is a little known event called Spartan Race. So they're still around in New England, which is good. So they have their Boston Super slash Sprint in Barry, Mass. So that's going to be next weekend. Sometimes it switches with Loudon, New Hampshire. It used to be in Rutland, Massachusetts, and before that was Amesbury, Massachusetts, where I had my first event back in 2012. The Killington Beast slash Ultra in Vermont, where Spartan first started. Super difficult. Don't let that be your first ultra, anyone.
Nice.
And then the Tri-State Super Beast Ultra in Vernon, New Jersey, not as hard as Killington, but still a really good challenge. And then the New York Sprint, which you might know better than me. I never made it out to that one, but I think that used to be in Tuxedo and now it's in Bethel, New York, where
Yeah,
Woodstock used to be.
that's like upstate. That's like upstate New York. That's
Oh, okay.
I it's not close to where my parents live. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Tough Mudder, this is where I would talk about them if we had any anymore. So they used to be in New England for Mount Snow, Loudon, New Hampshire, Stratton, Vermont. I know that's where you took on OCR Everest, but they're not here anymore. And
Really? I don't think
nope,
I realized that.
yep. I don't think they had their one in Long Island either. It used to be an old Bethpage.
Correct. Yeah.
Jersey used to have Englishtown, again, the birthplace of World's Toughest Mudder. They don't have it there anymore, I don't believe. So now the closest ones to us are in Philadelphia, which is like 6 hours away.
Oh wow.
That
And
is,
the Long Island one was Bethpage was not a big property. You would loop and see the course over and over again, and still they would get like they would squeeze in 8 miles, and
yes.
you'd be like running up and down. You'd be like literally zigzagging through some fields to get mileage.
Yep.
Um,
I
yeah, and
remember
then
that course well because that was the first time I ever did the tougher Mudder just because I wanted that like bib and go for I think that was like part of the Holy Grail back then. And
yep, yeah, tougher, toughest, yeah.
yep. And I was able to do like 100% obstacle completion and that was like really exciting for me.
The last time I tried to do that course, they canceled it due to a heat wave.
Ooh.
And I'm still upset at Nassau County for it. And
I think
it was gonna be like 80 degrees, and they're like heat wave, and I was like, what?
really.
But it was gonna get up to like 90, mid 90s by the middle of the day. Um,
Okay.
but still, it was like, but it took a couple of hours, and it was like you canceled an entire event for that. That
If that
seems
if that's
ridiculous.
the weekend I think it was. I think there was also like Muckfest, which I didn't have on the list, but I think I was going to cover that one. And then that got canceled. That got canceled. And like every event that was in the area once I drove to New York, New Jersey was canceled, except for Fit Challenge, which was back home, which was such a bummer that I missed out on the one event that was happening.
Ah,
And then Savage Race. I don't know why I didn't list them, but I was just there last weekend and they put on excellent events. I don't think Barry's one of their better events, but they are their same venue as where Spartan's going to be next weekend. But they have their regular course, which is 6 to 7 miles, and then they have their blitz course, which is around 3.5 miles. And something really cool is if you do both courses, you get what's called the Savage Syndicate, and you get a medal that is really, really nice.
Nice. Yeah.
And then,
Fan favorite Savage.
yep. And then a few other graveyard ones. We talked about Fit Challenge, but Blizzard Blast was in Lowell or Dracut, Massachusetts, was put on by Fred Smith and Smith Fest Events, who I worked with for a long time ago. It's a bummer. So their big thing was like no off season. They had an obstacle called Keg Kingdom, which was a rig of all kegs upside
Yeah, I
down.
remember seeing pictures of that. It's a cool one.
And it wasn't the hardest thing, but it was really fun to try to like it was very novel and just the ability to put your hand in the handholds was really fun. And then they also put on Panic in the Dark in Lowell, Massachusetts, which was my favorite event of all time. It was a zombie run, but it wasn't like a capture the flag kind of zombie run. But it was just one of those experiences that was just really interesting. Like the course would kind of like tell a story of the event, and I missed that one very badly. And then one more I wanted to highlight that we don't have anymore is Samurai Sprint in Westport, Mass. They were put on by Stephen Ferreira, and the course went through a vineyard, like a functioning vineyard, and after you could get wine and everything, and it was just a really, really pretty venue. And
Awesome.
yeah, that's kind of the state of the Northeast now.
That is quite a rundown. We'll try to drop some links in the show notes down below. And then if you're one of the brands and you hear this and we mention your brand and they mention some of your friends' brand, or we missed a brand, when we post it on Facebook or Instagram, whatever, please tag them. Again, with OCR declining in some areas and brands rising and falling, or new brands that maybe we're not tracking, please tag them so people can find you guys and get out there and keep racing. And then I would also check OCR Buddy. They're pretty good about putting a lot of brands on there. Occasionally I find one that's not on there, but usually that's how I primarily find my races.
Yeah, and that was one of the reasons why I put the abbreviated graveyard in there too, is that I don't want all of these other events to join them too. So all the more reason to come out, support these events. For some really, really good ones out there still.
Awesome. What else? Got a couple minutes left. What else do we need to know? Obstacle running adventures, things to be on the lookout for, major stuff you have going on.
Yeah, so I'm planning to go back to World's Toughest Mudder, make a few episodes there. Doing a lot more interviews with just kind of looking around, seeing what athletes I haven't had on the show in our past, 6, 7 years of doing the show. Looking around, trying to see who I still want to have on. We're about to hit episode 400, which is
Boom.
pretty crazy. So every 100
Huge.
episodes, we have a little bit of a celebration where I take little clips that people send me of like people mentioning me on the show. I know there's a few clips of you mentioning me and just mentioning me, Caitlin, just the podcast, because I feel that if other people are talking about us, then we're doing our job right. And it's just a little celebration that we do every 100 episodes.
Yeah, I don't, people, I feel like sometimes people take for granted, like the amount of time and effort it goes into planning, setting up these things, recording, editing, publishing, and the ability to do that, like you guys have been doing it consistently for, 6, 7 years is like, I mean, it's huge, right? Like
It,
it's people like, because you see it all the time. Oh, new OCR podcast, 1 year, 2 years, gone,
yeah,
right? Most of them last about 2 years, in my
yeah.
opinion.
I
Occasionally.
think one of the reasons why I've been pretty good at it and why you especially have been good at it too is it's a ultra endurance event, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's right. Life is an ultra endurance event, and you'll find that the more consistent you are, and if you're just really persistent about stuff, the appearance of success is just refusing to quit, essentially. So
Absolutely. Yeah. So we've been a weekly show. Things are likely to change next year, but we're not going away. It's just we'll just be changing the format a little bit, but we haven't missed a week since January 2017, which
that's
is
wild.
absurd to think about. Yeah.
And I have missed several weeks. I've been doing like one episode. I've just been too busy with retiring from the army and moving to the East Coast. I've been a little too busy, so I've been doing basically like one episode a month. I think my current plan is in January, switch it to YouTube. So if you're not subscribed to the Strength and Speed YouTube, I would go over there and subscribe because I'm eventually going to stop through the podcast distribution platform and probably just do them through YouTube. Essentially YouTube's free, and though I figured out not super novel, but I figured out how to like import all of my podcasts onto YouTube. So now everything is backed up on YouTube. which one of the reasons I didn't want to stop paying is because they will essentially will erase all your podcasts.
Yep.
So
Yeah, that's actually something that Jason from the OCR report just helped us with too. Is like,
yeah, that's how he's the one who helped me too. He's the one who told me.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't have anything against. It's just weird because like one like I think I don't know, point like 1% of people listen to us on YouTube,
right.
so it'd be tough
Yeah.
to make that change. But if you can do that, that'd be good.
Yeah, please subscribe on YouTube. Also, I'd eventually like to get monetized and make like $2 a month, whatever it is. It's so low.
Yeah,
But it's just the principle. It's the principle. Yeah.
absolutely. It feels good when you're like supported to see those subscribers or followers or whatever. So it may not seem like like much, but it does mean a lot for a content creator.
And then if anyone is listening, well, I'm going to put this out pretty soon after I record this. On the Sunday, the 18th, through Tiga Tactics, I am doing a combative conditioning webinar. So it's like an hour long. I'm basically going to talk about principles of fitness and how it relates to fighting, combat sports, and then like just physically defending yourself. And, in my opinion, I think OCR is one of the best actually self-protection things you can do, right? Because it's endurance, it's short speed sprint. It's doing something that near max effort very quickly and then going into running. So the only thing it's missing is like physically striking things. But I think it's actually a really good base for people who want to be quote unquote functionally fit. I think OCR is the true functional fitness. It's not doing hang cleans and you know doing whatchamacallit, pull-ups, kipping pull-ups. So
Right. Nice.
any other final shout outs we need to give, Mike?
The show's sponsored by Mud Gear and Canopy, so if you want to support them too.
Sweet. Make sure you go check out Obstacle Running Adventures. Subscribe to him on obviously Facebook and social media and all that stuff, but also YouTube, and then also whatever your favorite podcast platform is.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
All right, we will catch all of you later. And check the show notes down below. We'll drop a bunch of links. Make sure you're going out there and supporting the sport and keeping an eye on things. Any final predictions? I got 2 minutes on my clock before I get kicked off of Zoom. Any
Hmm.
final predictions for OCR?
I think OCR is going to continue to do really well in Europe. I think that's something that's not being highlighted enough is that they're doing really good in Europe, and I hope some of the success kind of spills over to North America after things have been the way that they are now. And I'm hoping there'll be a slight resurgence, but I don't know,
Yeah.
cautiously optimistic.
1 minute. Tell me your opinion on World's Toughest Mudder moving to UK. Go.
It's called World's Toughest Mudder, and I'm okay with it. I think of all of the amazing flags I see, Ireland and all the Scottish people, love hearing them talk. Australians are going there, my buddy Jamesy. Awesome people are coming from Europe or from all over the world to come to the United States every year. I'm more than happy to do my part to come across the pond and go do it in Beaver Castle. My two problems are that's not how you spell beaver for Beaver Castle, and two, it being in June is a little awkward. My friend's getting married potentially that weekend, and I don't want that to be the reason why I miss it. But if there's ever a reason I miss it, it's just because of the date. But I'm very happy about the location, and I hope to see a lot of awesome Europeans out there doing their best.
I agree. I think it's a good move. Like you said, World's Toughest Mudder, not America's Toughest Mudder. And I think I haven't done the hard numbers, but I'm pretty sure that the numbers at World's Toughest have been steadily declining. They're still decent, but have been steadily declining. And I think bringing it over to Europe is a good call. Maybe we'll get a boost in numbers. And then, the Europeans have been traveling to us for 10 years. Maybe it's time we travel to them. So I like it.
Love it.
All right. We'll catch all of you later. Thanks for joining us. And we'll see you on the next episode.